we decided it's your turn after Cheryl.
Let's wait for you.
We decided it's your turn after Cheryl.
Okay, so
Oh, I thought you meant the
I don't
speech.
know, whatever you like.
Surgery on.
Oh, 'cause everybody in my house has
Yeah.
surgery?
Yeah. Then Shane can take care of all of you.
Yeah, right.
It's not happening. He's gonna take care of Shane. Okay, I mentioned this morning that my friend Kelly, I'm not gonna call her by name, that she sends me an affirmation every morning that, trying to, wants to make my day better, and that's something truly she's very, very good at, and she spends her life making sure she's building up people. She has one of the hardest jobs, I think, in the world, but she does it, and she stays positive, and it's because of people that keep you positive that you can be positive, and so I try to do that. But I also have, actually it's somebody that Lester and I both know, that I would say we went to school with him, but I think I went to school with him because he's quite a bit older than you, because I'm quite a bit older than you. But anyway, he is a preacher in Ardmore, I think, right, Joe?
Yes.
He's in Ardmore, and about 2 or 3 times a week he sends a Bible verse out, no explanation, no nothing, and sometimes it hits me really hard. Sometimes I look at it and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good one, but then sometimes it really hits me and speaks to me, and he sent me one this week that really spoke to me, and I thought, that would be something I would not mind talking about, and the ramifications of things that God does not like. And what does he not like? I mean, because we can probably just sit here off the top of our head and name a lot of things this verse, it's in Proverbs, and so I got to dig in a little bit deeper because I want, I like to know the whole story and give the whole story. So I looked at like the origin of Proverbs, and Proverbs, of course, we all know was written by who? No. It was written by Solomon. It was written by Solomon. And then they think that maybe some other people maybe added some to it. But it's kind of funny because Solomon, or as Proverbs in general, it was written as a guide to people on how to be responsible and how to be good, godly people. And there was one commentator that said that it was probably written for Hebrews and young Hebrew children after the Israelites all left to try to help them to grow to be people of God and to be children of God. And that does make sense because when you look at all of the chapters in Proverbs, or at least the ones that I can remember and that I did read, it does say, it is a lot of lessons about how we as Christians should be acting. And I read one commentation about that every adult should read some chapter of Proverbs every week. They should just, we always should be studying Proverbs, not because we're not good people already, but because sometimes we forget. And also, what happens to us as Christians when we see someone who maybe is not acting the way they should? How is our Christian reaction? That's something I want you to think about. And it's really this is one point I want to make, because it was kind of funny and it's kind of ironic, in my opinion, that King Solomon wrote all of this about how to be a good man. He wrote a lot about how we shouldn't be committing adultery, how women should not be trying to seduce men, how men should not be taking women. But this morning, in your sermon, right, you brought that up, and it made me think, yeah, he's right, that he did not follow those rules. It was do as I say, I guess, not as I do. But, because he is the one who saw Bathsheba, right, laying. Oh, that was David. Okay, so, but he really, I think, did some things like that too. Apparently some.
Even that, wasn't David called a man after God's own heart?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody, not everybody kind of goes with this, but even the first chapter, the first verse of Proverbs 1 says, The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know the wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words and understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. And this is the King James Version. And so, some verses are a little bit better, but it tells you, the very beginning of the book of Proverbs, that it is all about finding out what you're supposed to do as a Christian, how you're supposed to be a Christian. And I focused on chapter 6 because the excerpt out of it was what Joseph had sent me, and so I thought. But then I was just going to do those 6 things. But then I got kind of into that chapter 6, and I was like, it really tells you a lot of really good things. Like the first of chapter 6, which when we read it, it's like, because sometimes I feel like reading the Bible in the King James Version, or even just reading the Bible, is sometimes, because they talked very different. It's like reading Shakespeare, which I never enjoyed doing because they had words that we don't use, they had cadences that we don't use, and sometimes in the Bible it's that way too. But when you really look at what they're saying, and sometimes I do like to go, because I have a Bible app, and so sometimes I will, because I don't love this version, the Living Bible, but I do think it, in some cases, it really breaks things down into a more readable and relatable, and uses words sometimes that we would more use. But the first 2 or 3 verses of I'm going to quit looking at my notes. All right, my son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand, shaken, because that's what that meant, shaken hands with a stranger, then you are snared in the words of thy mouth, and thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. And that talks about financial responsibility. We should not go and, some people think that this passage right there talks about how you should not go into debt. That you shouldn't go into debt. And a lot of people believe that. And you probably, especially, there are a lot of people around, not me, but that you should not go into debt for anything. That you should not have anything if you cannot pay for it with cash. And and that is the scripture that they use. Also, it kind of talks in that scripture about do not, like if your friend needs you to co-sign for a loan, and you know that friend is not going to pay that back, then don't do it. Don't do it, because that is your name. And as a citizen, your name means a lot. And as a Christian, your good name means a lot. So unless you're prepared to pay that debt back, you should not do it. And even if you sign a loan, or if you get a loan from money, or take a credit card, do not take a credit card out without knowing that you can and are willing to pay that back. But we think, well, God just didn't even know about credit cards then. The Lord didn't know. Solomon didn't know about credit cards then. But it is something that we can look at now and say, yeah, that's right. That makes us better people. It makes us more financially responsible, which means that we are less likely to live in poverty. Now, that doesn't mean everything, but there it is. Go to number 6, in chapter 6, verse 6. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, and consider her ways, and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food. Notice it says her. I'm just going to throw that out. In the harvest, how long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? Without wilt thou rise out of thy sleep. So let's take it from the ant. And what is he saying right there? Don't be what?
Lazy.
Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Work for what you have. And I think as a Christian, people will respect that. If you're working for what you have and not relying on somebody else to come in and always rescue you out of. Now, as Christians, are we led to people who need help? Yes, true, we are. We are true. And should we help them? But should we, there's a difference, and I always say this, and I think Les and I talked about this one day, there's a big difference between helping somebody and enabling someone. And we have to be able to discern, because, and again, Proverbs is about learning to use discernment. You know, do we help people? Absolutely. But do we enable them? I don't believe God wants us to do that. I will not ever believe that. The second thing, a naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a, I don't know what this word means, froward,
Worthless.
a worthless mouth. He winketh with his eyes, and he speaketh with his feet, and he teacheth with his fingers. Now, what do you think that word, that passage, what do you think they're saying here? Is he saying a naughty person, which I think that's interesting that word naughty is in the Bible. But anyway, so a person who has ill intent, how do we deal with people who have ill intent as a Christian? Yes.
And ourselves or others?
Well, both. I'll take either. Do you feel like you're froward? Froward?
Yeah,
Are you a naughty person, Leslie?
sometimes, yes.
Sometimes we are all naughty. I'm just saying, yeah. But yes, how do you deal? Right. Well, okay. So that is a good question. How do you deal with when you're feeling like I want to do something that I know God will not like, and not commit a crime, not murder somebody, but to do something that you know God will not like?
Fight hard not to. You're struggling, fight hard not to.
You fight hard. Can you do it?
I think just the thought of, I recognize this is something I should not do, that God will not like this, but I think that even increases our responsibility to God, that we, I don't know if I'm saying this right, to me it increases the chance of God coming back and smacking you and spanking you a little harder because you knew that was wrong. You went into it knowing it was wrong.
That is true. I mean, I cannot disagree with that.
Hey, and I'm happy that you have that. Here's why I'm saying, and I'm happy you're led by him and you know it's wrong and you're struggling to stay within. And there are some folks who don't have that, and it makes them think it's okay to do these things. So
It's true.
I'm happy it's there.
And in order to stay away from things like that, and these 6 things that we're going to talk about in a minute, can you do this by yourself?
No.
No. You need, not only do you need God's help, but you need a support system right here on earth that will help to hold you accountable.
And I like it go.
Whether you like it or don't like it. I mean, I may not like what you have to say, but I will think about it. And I may never tell you that you were right, but I will know you were. And that may have to be enough for you.
I like what Cheryl said. Here's what gets a whole lot of folks in trouble. I can do it all by myself. I don't care how hard you try. And that's why it's so important what we do here, because we support folks. That's what this is. It's a support system.
It is a support system. Pastor, did you have something you want to say about that? You kind of look like
Just
you.
that, well, basically you said already, anytime you think you can live the Christian life on your own, you've already lost. Satan will defeat you when you try. You've got to be
That's right.
you've got to stay in the Spirit and have the Holy Spirit's help, or you cannot live a Christian life, not even begin to live it.
And I think that is a good argument for organized religion. We hear a lot, and I have friends who's like, well, I love the Lord, and I pray every day, and I read my Bible, but I am not going to go to church because, organized religion is just not for me. But what you're saying is that's where you find your right. I mean, not everybody maybe, but you find a support system there. You should, if it's the right church, if it's the church that God led you to, you will find your support system. And if it's not the church that you were led to, maybe you won't. And so I don't know, that was just kind of, made me think of that when you said that you need that. And so I do think, I don't think you have to go to church. I don't think you have to go to church to be a Christian, but I think you're a better Christian. I know that I was. I think I've said this before.
Was? And past tense?
Do what?
You said was as the past tense.
Well, because there was a time, and I thought I had shared this before. I went like 6 years without going to church because I got mad. And I'm just like, no, I don't want, and it was sort of directed at me, but it was more directed at my daughter. And so I'm just like, no, and I got to several churches, and it's like, but not ever the right one. And I probably didn't pray about it enough, but I was like, you know what, I'm a busy person. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm not going to go to church. And I didn't. And once I did, when I found the right church, I thought, what a tragedy that I wasted those years where I could have been growing and praising and learning. So that's what, that's what most of me was. I know that I was so happy. I was a better person when I was going to church.
And I'm going to say this. In church, I'll say this, there are things, as you see how folks handle things in church, it helps you so much in your everyday life. As you see folks endure, as you see, we got friends and stuff, and as you have that group, it makes a big difference. And let me say this, and I'm not shut up. For years, I wasn't in church, and it wasn't the way it is now. As a friends, as a support system, and as you see, other folks can do what not, that makes a big difference. It does. It makes a big difference. Okay, so I'm shut up. Go ahead.
No, don't shut up. Kids not talk. All right, so now these are verses 16 through 19. Those are the ones that caught my attention that Joseph sent me. And this is what they said. But these 6 things doth the Lord hate. And personally, I never thought about the Lord hating things because, he's about love. But I know that he does, that he hates. And 7 are, and R is like emphasized, an abomination unto him. So these are almost like the 10 Commandments. And they do really, as we'll read, they do mimic some of the commandments. A proud look. Let's think about that. A proud look. What is that?
Thinking you're better than somebody else.
Thinking you're better than other people. Thinking you're better than other people. And we all know people like that. Not, where we work, where we go get groceries, everywhere. There are people with a proud look. And how do we feel about them?
They're such a snob.
Yes. Do we want to, sort of like what Daryl said this morning, do we want to go and say hello to those people?
No.
We don't. But should we? Yeah, I guess we should.
Or they gonna talk to us.
Well, does that matter?
No, it shouldn't.
Really it shouldn't. It does matter though, like, because I can be petty patty a lot. But yes, but that does not mean that we should react to them in a negative way. Or if they speak, certainly speak back to them. But yes, but God does not like a proud look or a haughty look. In some versions it says haughty, and in some it says what's another word? But anyway, you get the gist. But that is what that is. Okay, number 2 was a lying tongue and hands that shed innocent blood. Okay? The hands that shed innocent blood, you would think that's kind of a no-brainer.
Murder.
Because we think murder, but can we look deeper in that and maybe think more, not literally, but figuratively? You know, have you ever, not maybe ever did it, because probably y'all probably have not, but, or seen somebody that just crucified somebody with words?
And it happens a lot.
And it does happen a lot.
Yeah.
And they just crucify them with words and make them feel like they are nothing. And to me, that is shedding innocent blood, because they have been destroyed. And if you're a Christian, then they will never be, because they don't want to be like you. They don't want to be that way.
And there've been lots of young Christians that have been in church, and they won't come back.
And I think that you're right, because maybe they're a little bit different. And it's not just at church, but I know that it happens at church. What, somebody comes in with a lot of face piercings. You know, are we going to look at them? Probably, we are. That's our first response, right? That's our first, not response maybe, but that's, you know, we just automatically think. But we don't know those people's hearts, because I will look back at, I was still at Mesquite High School, it was the early 2000s, and there was a kid in my class, and it was really one of the big fads, you know, Pansy, you were probably still in high school, but to make clothes out of duct tape.
No.
And I don't know if that was just, you know, a city thing, but there was a kid, and he was in one of my classes, and he comes in, and his jeans were totally made of duct tape. Which, on one hand, I have to admire that, because, like, I don't.
That he put that work.
Yeah, that he could do that, and so you really had to think about that. But he also, you know, he had long hair, and he was kind of walking like this. And my first reaction to him, and a lot of people too, you know, were like, But I mean, I always liked him from the very first time I met him. He was so kind, and I met his parents at teacher night, and they were like totally the opposite, but they embraced his differentness.
Duct tape.
Yeah, they embraced that kind of thing in him. He was very respectful. And then one night, I was with some friends of mine at Olive Garden, and we were sitting outside waiting, and he walks across, and I didn't say anything to him because nobody wants their teacher to talk to them, you know, when they're at the Olive Garden. But they started talking about it. Oh my God, I'm so glad that's not my kid. And I just sit there and I said, you know, I know that kid. You know, I had him in class, and he is one of the most kind people. And so you don't judge that book just because, I mean, and I think I kind of got off the thing, but I think that we can't judge people who come into our church. We cannot, you know, we have a lot of unchurched people here in Crowell that maybe don't fit the mold of a churchgoer, but they would love to know more about the Lord. I guarantee you they would. I wish that I would, and I think our church is, but I would love to see our church reach out to those people and say, here's a place for you right here. We have a seat open tomorrow, this week, this Sunday, whenever, just for you. And when they get here, we recognize them and say, hey, I'm so happy you came. So glad you're here. And that, you know, is going to grow our church. It's going to grow our reputation, and you know, it's going to grow our church. And I think that's good. What was the other thing in that verse? Not the shed innocent blood, a lying tongue. I think that when somebody just lies to me, and I know they're lying. You know, in my head, my first reaction is what? What do you do, Pansy? You know somebody's lying to you.
I don't even want to talk to them. If you know they're lying to you,
Right, because you can't trust them. Should you
Because
call them
you want
out?
to say something mean.
But yeah, should you do that? Should you call them out and say, you know, I know you're lying, Cause I think they know they're lying, that they're not, I think, I don't know, I knew one person, you know her too, knew her too, that believed her lies. When she lied, she believed everything she said. But you know, we have to be careful at how we react to those kinds of people, because I probably wouldn't say anything personally, because, you know, you wanna be a liar, you can go be a liar, as long as I know what the truth is. That's the important thing. But should somebody say, hey, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just spitballing here. You know.
How I handle it is I call them out by themselves and say, hey, yeah.
And I think that is a very good
But
point.
that's just me.
You don't tell them in front of a whole group, well, you know, you're such a liar. I don't think I ever did. I used to have a student, he was a really nice kid, and I think he had been in a foster situation, and he just wanted somebody to pay attention to him, and I knew that was why. He didn't have probably a mean bone in his body, I don't think, but he would tell stories that I'm like, you know, like when he was, like, well, he lived in Kansas for a while, and he may have lived in Kansas, I don't really know, but when he told me that, I said, gosh, there's a lot of tornadoes up there, right? And he said, yes, you will never believe this, but once we had a tornado, and we didn't have a cellar, so we were just like in the house, in the closet, and picked up our whole house and just moved it. I'm like, really? Because that's the Wizard of Oz did that, but okay. Which then I found out that happened here in Crowell one time, because somebody said it, and I said, that is not true. But then Judy Foskey told me it was true, and if Judy said it, then it did happen. But I was like, I don't think that could happen. But it did, apparently, years in the 30s or 20s or something like that. But you do have to be, you know, and I think there is nothing wrong, because maybe they don't understand what that makes them look like. I mean, I think of Cody, and I think maybe he didn't understand that people are making fun of him. And probably in retrospect, I should have gone to him at some point, because we had a good relationship, and said, hey, you know, you are good all on your own. You do not need to lie. You don't need to make up stories about your life for people to like you. But I never did that, and so I'm lose sleep over that.
I had a coworker one time that if his mouth was open and he was talking, he was probably telling a lie. And I started calling him out on it. And I'd say, you're not, you're lying. And he'd just grin and laugh, and so every time I knew he was lying, I'd call him out on it. But it didn't make a difference. He still kept doing it, even though he knew.
And he wasn't offended?
I knew. No, he was not offended.
That's interesting.
But he knew that I knew, and I was calling him out. But it didn't change who he was.
No. But I think there is a difference between people who just lie because they like to stretch the truth, and people who do that maliciously, you know, to spread rumors, because I think that's down here somewhere too. Chapter 18, a heart that devises wicked imaginations. What is that? What do you think that is? A heart that devises wicked imaginations.
Making people think stuff that ain't true.
True. Try to gaslight people. You're right. I think that is exactly what I took out of that. To say that people, to start rumors, and then division, and that one.
Make people disagree over nothing.
Right.
Just to see drama.
Just to see drama. Like there's the drama llamas. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Feet that be swift and running to mischief. And those kind of go together, because have you ever known people that just are attracted to drama?
Mm-hmm.
And they thrive on it, and they love it. But
it makes no sense.
No, and there is no place for that in a Christian life at all. There is no place for that in a Christian life. A false witness that speaketh lies. And again, you know, we're talking about thou shalt not bear false witnesses. So we kind of talked about that one. And then he that soweth discord among brethren.
Someone who makes chaos.
Someone who likes to make chaos. Kind of, we would call them a pot stirrer. Somebody that maybe only comes around if they have something that's going to cause drama, maybe they don't. And what, as Christians, how do we handle that when someone tries to stir trouble, whether it's within our families or within our workplace or within our church or within our, like if you're in a club or what, if you're a parent, like in your little parent groups, how do we as Christians handle that?
You talk to him, pray for him, talk to him, pray for him, talk to him.
Right, and because you do pray for them, and you pray for that person, and those are, I think the first time somebody told me that we should be praying for our enemies, that knocked me, that really took me aback. I mean, it really did, because I thought, I'll pray for them all right, but I don't think he's going to like what I'm praying for. But
It just said pray for him.
yeah, it doesn't really know, and and I have since then. I have not that way, but I have prayed for them to have a heart. I have prayed for them to understand those people that they're around. I have prayed that they will soften their attitude sometimes, but I have, and I find, do you know that may not change them, but who will it change?
You, and I like that so much.
Yeah.
And folks, every time I see folks like that, I look at myself and say, here's how I do not be. I see the harm it's caused.
Because in I think it was a preacher that said one time, and not even, I think it was in a sermon, you cannot hate somebody that you're praying for if you are praying for them for real. That it is nearly impossible to hate them. And I personally don't, like, I think you were talking about hate this morning, and I don't waste a lot of time on hate because I just don't. It's not fruitful, and it doesn't hurt anybody but me. But I also sometimes can't go the other way and love them. But that's something that I should work on. And
It's not that you hate them, it's that you want to avoid them.
Right, and you do, and that brings you to the people who have these traits. Should we seek them out to be friends with?
No.
No, we probably should not.
Well,
what do you think? I think not, but
here is what I have found, as odd as this may sound. It's folks like those who have helped me grow, and that sounds terrible. It's hard to grow from.
But it is right.
It makes you mad, it has you upset, but I'll say this, if you pray about it and just try, it'll help you grow. Here's how it has helped me grow. It has helped me, just what you said. I look at folks like that and I say, you know what? I'm not going to be like that. No matter what happens, I'm going to make sure that I do not handle things like that. I'm going to be like that.
Well, and going back to your church family and being a support, that's where your church family should be your support, and you should be able to go to them and say, hey, I have this problem, I need you to pray.
and I think this group is really amazing at that. This group sitting right here. I know that I could go to any one of you in this room and say, hey, I've got a problem, and I need you to pray for me. I've got, and it's a problem in my heart.
Here's why I'm at this church. Here's what I like about this church. The folks here are sincere. I have gone to some churches that, hey, the folks there with me, they just did not seem sincere.
They didn't seem like they wanted to be there, they just seemed like.
And I like just what Cheryl said. Here I fit.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I feel like everybody fits here.
Exactly.
There's a place
Yeah.
for everybody who
Yeah.
wants to be here. And these things are hard because when you look at that, we are surrounded by people that have these traits, these 6 deadly traits every single day. And sometimes we just have very brief
Or-
encounters with them, but, you know, like in the line at the grocery store, when you see somebody that's just yelling at the cashier because the prices are high, she didn't set the prices. You know, it's.
Knowing the cashier can't do nothing.
Right.
But folks, I like what he said. Even if someone's trying, if they can't do what they're trying to do, is what an opportunity for us to help them, right? And to say, I'm going back to what Cheryl said. As we find folks like this, as we contact with folks like this, if we handle ourselves right, it's going to make it in. It may not seem like to you at the time that will make an impact, but oftentimes it can make an impact.
And I think that's true, and sometimes we will never see the impact of of our actions. And that's, you know, some people can't deal with that. And I've heard people like, I know, I need to see something now. But God does not promise that we will see the fruits of our labors. And I thought about, I was watching a movie, it was about tech, it was about technology the other day. And it was, and the guy it was Harrison Ford with a bald head. But anyway, that's not here there. But he was talking about technology and that all the work in technology, you will never see what it really is going to do because you're going to be dead. So what we're doing now is for our children and our children's children. And I thought, gosh, that's how Christianity is. We may never see a lot of the fruits of our labors, but our children will see it, and their children will see it, and their children will see it if the world goes on that long. And so it's not, and you know what, it may not even happen near us. It may happen 500 miles away, and we'll never know.
Who will see it though?
God will see it.
And that's why, you know, you said, and I tell what you're, I like what you're saying. I think you're right. And I tell you what, that's what happens to us often. I want to see it happen now.
So just in conclusion, it's not a really good conclusion, but it's what I got. Proverbs in and of itself, and I would encourage people to, and I'm going to read Proverbs through, and maybe that's what I'll do when I'm laid up. But Proverbs is designed to give us wisdom, which means to have the skills to live our lives successfully, and that can do that. Proverbs is designed to allow us to know instruction. Through the study of Proverbs, we receive moral discipline needed to live your life successfully. And then it also teaches us understanding and discernment. And I think those are two words that we don't stress enough, is understanding other people and discernment. So, you know, I know there are times I should be more discerning about things. And I really try to always understand people before I judge them. But, does anybody else have anything to add to that? I know that was kind of flat, but.
No, you did
No,
good.
it was great.
Yeah, hey, it was.
Talking about-
I enjoyed that show a lot.
Talking about stirring discord, one of the things, and you probably said it, but just how we react, and if we try not to react to these people, it gets their vote, because they're doing it for a reaction.
And that is true.
They wanna see how hard they can make you spin your head around, or how fast. They wanna see the reaction from us. And that some of them wanna see that we have an unchristian reaction. And sometimes we do.
And sometimes